This is the issue, and I am the ghetto man. Today's issue, DACA and the Dreamers. Don't go away. We'll be right back. The first thing that I want to say about DACA is that DACA is not law. DACA is nothing more than a policy memo from the Department of Homeland Security. The memo violates all U.S. immigration law and would allow illegal aliens to become citizens by bypassing existing U.S. immigration law. The policy, the memo, it has no foundation in law and is completely unconstitutional. DACA, which means Deferred Action for Children Arrivals, is an unlawful immigration policy that allows some individuals who entered the country as minors and had either entered or remained in the country illegally to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation. Now, Article 2, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution states that the President, quote, shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, unquote. The Constitution mandates that the enforcing of our country's immigration laws and deciding who should be targeted for deportation and who's allowed to stay is clearly the job of the President. Now, since these people are here illegally, they do not have a legal standing under U.S. law. The DACA memorandum is without any legal authority whatsoever and does not override existing immigration law. Now, on January 9th of this year, 2018, a U.S. District Court judge in San Francisco, and I mean without jurisdiction at all, temporarily and partially blocked the Trump administration from rescinding the unlawful 2012 memorandum. Now, the court, with no law supporting its ruling, ordered that the president had to continue the unlawful processing of DACA renewals while a legal challenge proceeds. Now, even though, and this is my opinion, even though the administration is under no obligation to abide by the court's ruling, the administration has appealed the court's decision and said it would petition the Supreme Court for a direct review of the matter. Now, the Trump administration was also under threat of legal action against it by Republicans, attorney generals, and governors if he didn't rescind the 2012 DACA memorandum by September 5th of 2017. Now, the federal court is clearly blocking the president from faithfully executing the laws of the United States concerning immigration law. The court's ruling is a violation of the separation of powers doctrine. The courts cannot interfere with the president carrying out his duty, pursuant to Article 2, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. The only time that the courts would have jurisdiction is when there's an issue in controversy concerning a rights violation of a U.S. citizen or a legal issue concerning a legal immigrant claiming a due process violation under current U.S. immigration law. We must remember that non-citizens have no constitutional right to cross our borders unlawfully, and they have no right to remain on our soil once they've entered our country in violation of that law. We are a nation of laws, not a nation of men who would dictate their will upon the American citizens in lieu of the law. If we ignore this fact, then we toss out every safeguard that our nation's founders established that made this nation the last bastion of freedom and the most desirable place on the face of the earth. Decency, security, and liberty alike demand that government officials shall be subjected to the same rules of conduct that are commands to the citizen. In a government of laws, Existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good or for ill, it teaches the whole of people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for the law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. And that comes from the case called Olmstead versus U.S. It can be found on page 277 U.S. 485. Have our public servants become lawbreakers? Well, I think the facts speak for themselves. The DACA memo claims outside the authority of U.S. immigration law to grant over 1 million illegal aliens who arrived as minors, give them work permits, social security numbers, deferred deportation, and a driver's license. Now, the Constitution of the United States assigns the role of the lawmaker to who? Congress. The executive branch or the executive is mandated with the enforcing of law. It's not the other way around. The DACA memo, because it's not law, does not provide a legal path to citizenship. DACA recipients still do not have a lawful status to be in the United States. This is the quagmire that is created when our public servants refuse to enforce a law that is mandated by Congress. To defer deportation without lawful authority is in itself aiding and abetting a criminal act. In 2012, Obama spoke about Congress's failure to pass the DREAM Act that would have created a path to citizenship for a certain class of illegal immigrants brought here as children. He said that in absence of congressional action creating a law to do so, the Department of Homeland Security would, and this is without lawful authority, temporarily institute a program to defer deportation for eligible individuals who do not present a risk to national security or public safety. Obama called it a temporary stopgap measure that lets us focus our resources wisely while giving a degree of relief and hope to talented, driven, patriotic young people, unquote. Obama, himself a former constitutional law professor, clearly stated, quote, "With respect to the notion that I can just suspend deportations through executive order, that's just not the case. There are enough laws in the books by Congress that are very clear in terms of how we have to enforce our immigration system, that for me to simply, through executive order, ignore those congressional mandates would not conform with my appropriate role as president," unquote. Okay, Obama said that. Now, DACA, it isn't even an executive order. I mean, we hear the lamestream media calling it executive order. It's not. It is just a memorandum. And a memorandum with no lawful authority at all. Okay, the requirements for citizenship are usually as follows. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the American Immigration Center's website. Okay, we're at the American Immigration Center's webpage. We're on the page that deals with how you find out about immigration. This particular page deals with Form N-400, which is an application for citizenship. And I'd like to direct your attention to about the middle of the page. You'll see that there are 5 basic requirements for U.S. citizenship. Number 1, you must be at least 18 years old to apply. 2, you must meet residency requirements by living as a legal permanent resident in the U.S. for a specific period of time and in the current state where you reside for a specific period of time. Number 3, you must not have been convicted of serious crimes and must be able to show good moral character. 4, you must have an adequate grasp of the English language and U.S. civics to pass the naturalization test. And 5, you must understand and be willing to take an oath to the effect that you believe in the U.S. Constitution. 1, You must be at least 18 years old to apply for citizenship in this country. 2. You must meet residency requirements by living as a legal permanent resident in the U.S. for a specific period of time and in the current state where you reside for a certain period of time. 3. It says you must not have been convicted of serious crimes and must be able to show good moral character. Now, illegal immigration is a crime, isn't it? Each year, the Border Patrol apprehends hundreds of thousands of aliens who flagrantly violate our nation's laws by unlawfully crossing the U.S. border. Such illegal entry is a misdemeanor, according to the law, and if repeated after being deported, becomes punishable as a felony. Now, based on the requirements within our immigration laws, logic would dictate that because of their unlawful status, an illegal alien would be barred from citizenship altogether. If the first thing that an illegal alien does when entering the U.S. is break the law, how can they prove a showing of good moral character? Number 4, you must have an adequate grasp of the English language and U.S. civics to pass the naturalization test. And 5, you must understand and be willing to take an oath to the effect that you believe in the United States Constitution. Let's take a look at the Department of Homeland Security's website under 100 civic questions and answers. Okay, here we are on the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website. On this website, you'll find 100 civics questions and answers. This is a website so that someone who has applied for citizenship can go and at least study the questions and answers that are going to be asked to an applicant when they take their naturalization test. And it's quite interesting because, as you'll see from the test, and this is the reason I brought this up, is that the applicant has to have an understanding on how our constitutional republic works. As you can see, like the first question, it says, what is the supreme law of the land? And of course, the answer is the Constitution. What does the Constitution do? And it says sets up government, defines government, protects basic rights, and so on. And as you go down here, you see that it's about how our government works. So it's very important to understand that in order to become a citizen, you have to understand how our government works. Now, an applicant must answer 6 out of the 10 questions correctly to pass the civics portion of the naturalization test. The creation of DACA by memo through the executive branch of government rather than through the legislative branch is a violation of the separation of powers doctrine and a clear overreach of the executive power. To date, no court ruling on the constitutionality of DACA has been made. Okay, this brings us to the DREAM Act. What is the DREAM Act? The DREAM Act means Development, Relief, and Education of Alien Minors Act, popularly known as the DREAM Act, and it was a legislative proposal drafted by both the Republicans and the Democrats. And when I say the Republicans, I'm talking about the undocumented Democrats that have infiltrated the Republican Party. It was created to help illegal immigrants in the United States who meet certain requirements have an opportunity to enlist in the military and go to college and have a path to citizenship, first by being granted conditional residency and then permanent residency. The act would allow dreamers to bring a long list of family members into the country as well, placing an enormous financial strain on the taxpayers. We're talking about 12 to 30 million illegal aliens in the United States. They also want to release the illegal aliens who are in detention centers for crossing the U.S.-Mexican border illegally and fast-track them to citizenship as well. Illegal aliens would be eligible for every free communist money welfare program that the left has plagued our republic with to date. Free food, free medical, free Social Security, and the list goes on and on and on. The Dreamers would be eligible for free in-state tuition. They would have access to public financial assistance and be given a free waiver for higher education at state colleges and universities. We all know that colleges and universities are cesspools of communist programs and anti-American propaganda. True American history is not taught in the schools anymore, only anti-American communist propaganda. The Democrats want to leave the borders wide open and let people in who have no understanding of our American history, no understanding of our constitutional law, no understanding of our constitutional form of government, and, above all, no allegiance to our Constitution and the Republican form of government that it guarantees. Democrats have an agenda to use the democratic process, a process that is foreign to our Constitution and was hated by our nation's founders, to undermine the U.S. Constitution. The Democratic Party wants ignorant foreign illegal aliens here to vote the Democratic Party's anti-American socialist communist agenda. It is all about leftist anti-American votes. The DREAM Act is a nightmare fast-tracked that bypasses the protections in our immigration law, letting millions of illegal aliens into our country that have no allegiance to our republic and allow these people to become citizens. I think that DACA, and I got this from a meme off the internet, should stand for Democrats Against Citizens of America. Well, I'm the Ghetto Man. Thank you for watching. If you're politically correct, then you're legally wrong. And if you're not part of the solution, then you are the problem. Please subscribe and please share.